Hi everyone, welcome to the Timeform and Sporting Life Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe special. I'm Ben Linfoot and I'm joined by Matt Brocklebank from Sporting Life and Lewis Tomlinson from Timeform to discuss the race in detail. Welcome along, gents. Matt, it's the Arc.
What a weekend!
Is it a good Arc?
Yeah, well, it's a good meeting, isn't it? In general, and there's a strong, certainly a strong representation from Britain and Ireland. But we're just chatting about the Arc Prix record there, and this year's Arc is substandard. Unfortunately, I think it's a reflection of many things, isn't it? A sort of a wider issues. I suppose the racing world and the world in itself is shrinking. Look at where the money is, and people are following the money. And then obviously we've had that sort of perfect storm of horses, not for the Arc obviously, but for horses like the Derby winner, City of Troy, having agendas elsewhere. Economics, what price would he be in an Arc like this as well? One or two injuries as well to horses that starred in big races at the start of the season. And then obviously the ongoing issue around the geldings, which obviously they're going to address in the near future. But a horse like Calandagan, he'd be a short price as well, I suspect as well. So it's a tricky race to fathom, but it's always exciting, Scoop. I love Arc Day, I love Arc Weekend. It is a very special meeting. It's a special race course, but this looks like a bit of a punter's year for the Arc, doesn't it?
It does indeed, and we'll try and find a few bets as we go along. Like you say, a few big guns missing: City of Troy, Economics, some good 3-year-olds, some good geldings who aren't allowed in the race. But the 3-year-olds dominate the market, Lewis. But it's not a 3-year-old that dominates the Timeform ratings, because Al Riffa has found himself top of the shop off 134.
Yeah, Al Riffa's top rated with us, 134 on the weight adjusted ratings. That's based off his 2 runs his season at Hoppegarten, obviously, where he bolted up in Germany last time, and he's second to City of Troy. In the Eclipse, now they were given performance figures of 1, 2, 3, so they are the 2 best individual performances from any horse that's running in the Arc this season. I say with the weight adjustment as well, Bluestocking comes out a pound behind after her winning the Vermeer. She's ran to 117 plus 4 out of her 5 starts this season, so I would say very consistent mare. The only time she didn't was when she was 4th in an international. So she, chances are pretty obvious. And then obviously Shin Emperor, Los Angeles, both even pretty similar ratings after their run in the Irish Champion.
Yeah, it looks pretty tight on the ratings. We're going to look at 4 video clues. I'm going to start with Al Riffa, because he was second to City of Troy in the Coral Eclipse at Sandown back in July. And this piece of form is arguably one of the strongest in the race, Lewis.
Yeah, definitely. Look, not even if you're going to, I guess, use City of Troy as a benchmark here. If you look at how soundly he's beaten Ghostwriter, who's a very good yardstick in terms of showing up and giving his running in Group 1s throughout the season. It is a really good run, and it's as good as we've seen from anything in the Arc this season. As Matt kind of said, if we were to look at the Arc field last year, we had 5 runners who had cracked 125 as an individual rating in the 12 months prior. 3 of those had cracked 130. Al Riffa's 123, second in the Eclipse, is the best performance from any horse so far this year. So that's kind of the level we're operating at. I think people kind of forget with Al Riffa as well how lightly raced he still kind of is. He's coming
and lightly raced over a 1.5 miles as well, which is potentially key.
Yeah, he's looked like a 1.5 mile horse.
Yeah.
Probably ever since he was a 2-year-old winning the national stakes. He's only had 9 career starts. One of them was in America, which was a little bit of a write-off. He's a horse who I've kind of maybe somewhat harshly just kind of dismissed as a kind of...
forgot about him a bit, didn't we?
A little bit of a Group 1, also ran 3rd or 4th type character.
Well, he popped up in that Group 1 as a 2-year-old, and then he kind of went missing, obviously, and you just forget about these horses, but you forget about their quality as well.
You look at his second to Ace Impact last season.
That was a superb effort.
Quality in his back.
And he is bred, I think, his sort of Gold Cup horses in his pedigree, isn't he? He's definitely bred to stay, and the way that he won in Germany last time was deeply impressive. Yeah, it sort of feels like, you go through the whole card, don't you? And it feels like, if Al Riffa won an Arc, but it is that sort of Arc.
Hands on the table, I like him. I think he'd be my selection in the Arc, Al Riffa, just because he's so unexposed over a 1.5 miles. He was so impressive in Germany in what has been a key trial last time out. I think there's plenty to like about him, particularly in this Arc de Triomphe, maybe in not others, but in this Arc de Triomphe, I think he's got an outstanding chance.
I think he goes close. I wrote it in Sporting Life in the week, and it has been said elsewhere, but the jockey change puts me off. I'd love to have seen Dylan Brown McMonagle given a shot on this horse. He's regular rider. Obviously, Japanese interest now in terms of the ownership of this horse, and Yutakatake, a legend of the racing world. 30 years ago, I think it was, he had his first ride in the Arc. This will be his 10th or 11th ride, and he's yet to win it. But, I mean, what a story it would be.
Amazing.
But my word, I'd want the younger, hungry jockey on for me, personally. Okay. If I was betting on this horse, what we're looking at, 10 to 1, Yutakatake to win the... it is fairy tale stuff, and as an individual, the horse I like a lot. I can see him going really, really close, but not quite enough for me to back
quite
him.
enough for you. Well, let's have a look at a few of the home team, because they dominate the market, and the Prix Niel with Soze, Delius and Luc de Vega, Matt, is a key piece of form, however you look at this race.
Yeah, it should be. The Niel, it was a typical trial, I think, in terms of those French races, small fields, and Soze, obviously the classic winner for Andre Fabre earlier in the year. He was really, really keen. Watch that race back in the Prix Niel. He really did pull for his head. So for him to go and win that, as he did in a trial, I mean, there's a lot of people looking at Luc de Vega going, how fit was he? Well, I find it hard to imagine that Andre Fabre would have had Soze after 2 months off at 100%. So I'd expect him to come forward. The horse in second impressed me. I still think there's got a bit of a kink in him. Delius, he's a Frankel colt, trained by Jean-Claude Rouget, who can obviously prepare them for the Art 2 wins on his CV already. And he is sitting on more potential. He was placed again behind Soze at Chantilly.
Grand Prix de Paris.
Grand Prix de Paris. He was placed behind Soze earlier in the season, and he finished second. So he split the two, and he's a bigger price than them. So Delius, I've got an inkling that he might run well. I just don't know. Are these horses special 3-year-old colts? We'll find out on Saturday, but I don't think they're Ace Impact, are they?
No, I must admit, I'm happy to take them on. I was a little bit surprised, Lewis, by the market in terms of Luc de Vega finding himself back as favourite. I found it difficult to see him perhaps reversing that form with Soze, but how do you see it?
No, I'd be with you there, Scoop. I think the more relevant piece of form is the Niel, surely. It's more recent. It's over the trip. We know kind of where Soze's at as a base. If he steps forward from that, that's brilliant as well. Luc de Vega will need to step forward. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it, you know. And you can make cases for as to why he kind of had to make his own run in. He wasn't given too hard of a time in the Niel, and obviously he was coming back from a break. But as Matt said, I think similar comments in terms of stepping forward will apply to Soze. He's improved with each run since stepping up to the trip. I agree again about Delius as well, who I think looks like perhaps the strongest stayer of the three. I don't think he was eroding the deficit any further to Soze at the line in the trial. You know, he eroded it somewhat, but for the best part of half a furlong in the closing stages, he wasn't getting any closer. I thought, you know, Soze would have won that with another furlong to run. I think he's really, really, really solid. You know, obviously Andre Fabre, an absolute master. And like we've kind of said several times, it might not be the Arc where you're looking for a really flashy one, and he's just got a very, very obvious Arc profile to me, Soze.
Okay, well, there's not many British contenders in there, but there has been one supplemented, and it's Bluestocking for Rafe Beckett, who has got previous in the Arc. And here is Bluestocking, Matt, running behind City of Troy in the Juddmonte International at York in August.
Yeah, this feels a bit harsh, doesn't it, to be showing this piece of form, because this is probably one of her lesser efforts given her brilliant consistency this season. She was a nearly horse last year, went close in a couple of Group 1s. She's actually won 2 Group 1s this time around. And here at York, on fast ground, the way the race was run, back at 10 furlongs, this just wasn't her ideal conditions. There she is staying on fairly well in fourth, but again well behind Ghostwriter, which ties her in with the Coral Eclipse form. But again, I don't think that was obviously a true reflection of her very best conditions, her perfect scenario. A mile and a half on easier ground, clearly more her thing. And she showed it last time out in the Prix Vermeil. She won that gamely, really gamely. Avonture came for her. She fended her off. She has a fantastic attitude now for a horse that was questioned in that regard last season. The cheek pieces have definitely helped her out. And she's really game and tough and stays the trip very, very well. Now, she's got a good draw. You know, there's lots of ticks in boxes. Is she quite classy enough to get the job done in an Arc? I can certainly see her going close. A bit like Riffa. I can see her being in the first 4. Again, I just can't quite get her over the line in terms of having a bet on this filly. She's very, very good. She's not quite an arc filly for me.
Do we expect her to uphold the form with Aventure from the trail?
I do. Interestingly, in contrast to the Prix Niel, obviously where not one of the jockeys went for the stick, she had quite a hard race. But they both had quite a hard race, and she fended her off. Now, obviously, she's very, very tough, and she will keep going, this horse. But I think those two had a slightly harder race, and whether they've left their arc in the trial there, we'll see on Sunday. But I'm not sure Aventure's going to overturn the form. She's got fewer miles on the clock, hasn't she, Lewis?
Yeah, and as I say, there's very, very little between them. But I'd take a very similar view to Matt. I guess with both of those fillies, Bluestocking especially, where we know she'll run a race and she will probably be there or thereabouts to a degree. But even if we're assessing this as a below average arc, if there's any improvement from any of the French colts or Shin Emperor, the ones who are still slightly unexposed, £2 or £3 worth of improvement from them would surely be enough to kind of make life too difficult for Bluestocking. I think it's probably likely she finishes third or fourth and wins a race.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Shin Emperor there, and Japan obviously been trying to win the arc for a good few decades now, and they've gone close on a few occasions. Here is Shin Emperor in the maroon colours, finishing third last time in the Irish Champions Stakes, Lewis. What did you make of this run with a view to how he could come on for it in the Arc de Triomphe?
Yeah, it's really interesting, to be fair. This was a clear career best on Timeform ratings for Shin Emperor, improved £8 from his third in the Japanese Derby to his third in the Irish Champion. Obviously, they've all finished in a little bit of a heat, but he's had to switch out, finished fuller running, just nabbed Los Angeles for third on the line. Obviously, half brother to Sotsas, bred to win an arc, and it'd be a great story. A lot of, I guess, people who'd be more up on the Japanese form than I would bet, and there'd be a lot of them, would tell you he's far from the best horse Japan have ever sent over, but he is improving. He clearly will appreciate the step back up to 1.5 miles. He's still only had 5 or 6 career starts. Look, has to be a player on that run. Has to be a player.
How much do you buy into the trainer saying that he was about 80% fit that day?
I'm never really one to listen to trainers, to be fair, in that sense. No one's ever had the horse 100%, have they?
No, exactly. Los Angeles, Matt, we saw there with a really good run in the Irish Champions Stakes over a trip that probably wouldn't be his best, and stepping back up to 1.5 miles, we're expecting improvement from him too.
Yeah,
here he is winning the Irish Derby.
He reverses the form for me, Scoop, back at 1.5 miles. I really do believe that. It was interesting. Obviously won the Irish Derby here, and on the form book, you look at it and think, well, Sunway's beaten less than a length by Los Angeles at the Curragh. Why is he 50-1 and Los Angeles 6-1? Well, he's had plenty in hand. For me, I thought he won this cosily. He doesn't do a huge amount when he gets to the front. And from this day, I thought he was a St. Ledger horse. But what he did at York under the penalty in the Great Voltager, beating his stablemates, admittedly, but he got there and defied the penalty. To go from that to drop back to the 10 furlongs in the Irish Champion Stakes, Aidan O'Brien said straight after York, he's the sort of horse that will run third or fourth in the Irish Champion and we could go for an arc. So he's working out as he expected. I think that was absolutely a prep race, obviously, at Leopardstown, and he ran very well. He was running on. The race seemed to revolve around them trying to get another Irish Champion Stakes for Auguste Rodin. Now, obviously, Los Angeles was clearly running on merits and ran on very well in the closing stages under McMonagle that day. But Ryan Moore on here, up to 1.5 miles, easier ground. It was plenty quick enough in Ireland last time out. I think he reverses the form with Shin Emperor. Shin Emperor's got a slightly odd head carriage. I know he was going forward still at the line there, but I'd have 1 or 2 questions about him being an absolute Japanese star. Now, I suppose they are seeking this first win in the arc, and they've probably landed on the easiest chance yet, haven't they, in this year's renewal? But I think Los Angeles is he's a little bit overlooked, considering all the furore around City of Troy and the season that he's had. I think Los Angeles is just a little bit underestimated and has a very strong chance. Okay, we'll get to final selections in a moment or two, but let's just ponder the draw and potential tactics, because we were looking in the office beforehand and pace angles look pretty thin on the ground here. I mean, we're looking at maybe Savannah's Night
going forward, been the rabbit for Andre Fab and Mikel Barcelona. But there aren't too many obvious front runners in the race.
No, we could get a messy arc as well. It looks pretty messy going into it beforehand, assessing the form, and it could well be a messy race the way that it unfolds. Look, De Vega obviously made the run in just a little bit out of sufferance in the Niel. Bluestocking will be handy, I'd imagine, won't she? She's
drawn in 3. She's got a good draw to attack from.
Yeah, but I don't see her out in front, do you? No.
She's never led before, has she?
No, there are very few that have really, trying to find an obvious front runner in this race is difficult, especially amongst the more fancied horses.
As a Los Angeles fan, I think Ryan Moore's not going to mess about either, to be honest. I know he's drawn 10, but he could easily negate a few of those drawn on his inside by getting a decent start and getting across. I think Los Angeles might ideally sit 3rd or 4th, but I think it's probably the case for a lot of them. Savannah's Night, interesting. I know we're going to wrap up shortly and come to selections. In terms of if there's a boil-over scoop, I think it could be Savannah's Night. He is about 66-1, and he's obviously made his name as a stayer, this horse, and he's completely unheralded and sort of, third string of Andre Fab's in the race. But Mikel Barcelona is dangerous on the front end. We've seen it countless times in France over the years, and obviously earlier this year, Tribalist nicked a Group 1 under Barcelona. I can see Savannah's Night being the only front runner. I think he will poach a lead, and I think they might let him go. I think they might underestimate this horse a little bit, but he has got the requisite speed, I think, to trouble a few of them. I think he might hang in there a lot longer than people anticipate, and if there's an each-way bet with 4 places, I think it could be Savannah's Night. This is a horse that's been to Longchamp 3 times this year and won 3 group races. Now, they were over a 1 mile 7, after which one of them, I think Connections were talking about, I think he's owned by Australian owners now as well, and they were talking about the Melbourne Cup. So fascinating that he's been taken out of that and comes for the Arc instead. I think he'd want a bit of rain, bit of juice in the ground, bit more rain on Sunday morning possibly. That would suit him. And if there's
essentially a few mils forecast in the Sunday morning.
If there's an absolute what's this out in front, gone 6 lengths clear under Barcelona, and they've let him go.
Well, it happens.
I think he could be the one to outrun his rivals. It might be worth a few quid each way.
Okay. Well, I had 2 questions to finish. Most likely winner and best bet in the race. So is Savannah's Night your best bet in the race?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think he is.
Okay.
At wild prices on the exchange, I think you might genuinely get 100-1 about this horse.
Wild price Savannah's Night. I like that. Lewis, I'll come to you. Most likely winner?
I think Souls is probably the likeliest winner of the Arc. I think just everything looks to be in his favour.
Okay. And what's your best bet in the race?
I'd probably be with Solzy as well. I say it's a little bit of a boring one, isn't it? And you can kind of take 2 views as to whether, I guess, the bar's so low that you can make a case like Matt has for a wild outsider to be winning it. I just kind of think that there are a lot of Deadwood's probably a bit harsh, but there are a lot of horses in there that I just probably don't think are quite good enough to win an Arc. And given Solzy's run-to-run progression, another £3 or £4 worth of improvement, I think might make him quite difficult to beat.
Yeah, I must admit, I think he is probably the most likely winner, but it's Al Riffa as the bet for me. Matt, who is your most likely winner in the Arc?
Well, I think economics would be about 9-4 for this race, isn't it? So I would say that the Irish Champion Stakes should be upheld here, and I'm with Los Angeles Ryan Moore, Aidan O'Brien. Incredibly, O'Brien has never won an Arc with a 3-year-old. He's only ever won it twice, is that right? Incredible, really, but you have to take each horse on their merits, and I think Los Angeles is a big, strong galloper who stays the trip well and will be given the perfect ride. So he's the most likely winner, but don't forget Savannah's Night out in front.
Great stuff. Great to finish with a wild one in Savannah's Night at huge prices. That's it. That's the Arc wrapped up. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the action at Longchamp on Sunday.